Let's start with a big question. What if the biggest threat to our company isn't a competitor or a market crash, but something that's happening right here inside our own walls? Today, we're going to explore how an ethical culture isn't just some nice-to-have idea. It's actually a critical defense system against risks you might not even see coming. All right, so here's our game plan. First up, we're going to uncover what's really hiding in the shadows with ethical risk. Then, we'll see how culture becomes our absolute best defense. We'll also get into the massive role that leaders play, how every single one of us can contribute by speaking up, and finally, how we make sure this powerful culture we're building actually stays alive and well. Okay, so let's dive right in. Let's talk about a kind of threat that really flies under the radar. This isn't something you're going to find on a balance sheet, but believe me, the fallout can be absolutely devastating for our business and our brand. It really is a huge question. And, our minds immediately go to the external stuff, market shifts, new competitors, things like that. But honestly, one of the most significant and most damaging threats actually comes from right inside our own organization. This is what we call ethical risk. A good way to think of it is like hidden landmines just waiting to be stepped on. These are those really bad surprises that just explode out of what might seem like small, unethical choices, and they lead to some pretty devastating stuff, like huge legal bills and a complete loss of the trust we've worked so hard to build. So how in the world do we defend against a threat like that? Well, the answer isn't just about damage control after the fact. It's about building a shield before an attack ever comes. And that shield, that's our culture. Look, the best defense here is a total shift in our mindset. Over on the left, you see the old way of doing things, just focusing on compliance. It's all about following rules out of fear, and it constantly begs the question, what can I get away with? What we're doing is moving to the model on the right, a living, breathing culture that's built on our shared values. This is proactive, and it asks a much, much more powerful question. What is the right thing to do? And when we make that shift, our culture becomes so much more than just a shield. It's a real strategic advantage. It builds that rock-solid trust with our customers, it makes us a magnet for the best talent out there, and it really lays the groundwork for long-term, sustainable growth. But here's the thing. A culture like this doesn't just pop up out of nowhere. No, it has to be designed, it has to be built, and it has to be maintained. And that whole construction project, it always starts at the very top. This is what people call the tone at the top. And it means our leaders can't just talk the talk. They have to walk the walk. Their actions, their decisions, and how consistently they enforce our standards, that sends the clearest message possible about what we really value around here. So that tone from the top then translates into really specific duties for our supervisors. They're the frontline defenders of our culture. This means they've got to be actively monitoring what's going on with their teams, stepping in early before small issues blow up into big problems, documenting everything clearly, and knowing exactly when it's time to escalate something up the chain. Okay, so leadership sets the tone, but a really strong culture needs everyone to get in the game. Let's talk about the absolutely vital role that every single one of us plays in keeping this culture strong. The end goal here is to build what we call a speak-up culture. And this isn't just about having an open door policy. It's about creating real psychological safety. It's an environment where every single person feels empowered to raise a concern or flag a problem, knowing for a fact that they'll be heard and protected, not punished. And look, this isn't some vague idea. We have a clear process. If you see something, first, just recognize it. Then, document the key facts, the who, what, where, and when. Use the reporting channels we have in place, whether that's talking to your manager, HR, or using an anonymous hotline. And this is critical. Know that you are protected by law and by company policy when you report something in good faith. So we've laid the foundation. We've built the shield. But an ethical culture isn't like a statue you build once and then just stand back and admire. It's a living, breathing part of the organization that needs constant care and attention if it's going to thrive. So we keep this culture alive through a cycle of continuous improvement. What does that mean? It means regular training that's actually relevant to our day-to-day work, not just some box to check. It means our policies have to evolve as our business evolves. We have to proactively hunt for new risks before they find us and use audits to make sure our systems are actually working the way they're supposed to. So how do the best companies actually make this happen? Check out this number, 54%. Data from Ethisphere shows that more than half of the world's most ethical companies don't just sit around and wait for problems to pop up. No, They equip their managers with a schedule of ethical topics to discuss with their teams regularly. It's about shifting ethics from being a once-a-year training session to a daily conversation. And really, that's the core idea here. This is not a checklist that we just tick off once a year and forget about. It's a continuous loop. It's a cultural mindset of always evaluating, always learning, and always improving that just becomes part of how we do things every day. So we want to leave you with this question. Building this kind of culture isn't just a task for leadership or a project for HR. It's on every single one of us. So the real question is, how will you contribute to our ethical culture, starting right now, today?